one of the things that is most exciting for us is that we recognize that this is a tool that is supported by the best evidence we have at the moment to combat the biggest health challenges that we have as a society.
Welcome to the Fit Affiliate Podcast. And welcome back to our next episode as I watch Tony have one eye to make sure if he's going to interrupt me or not, to the Fit Affiliate Podcast. Joined today, as always, by my patient and faithful cohort, Tony. But today we are super pumped to have Dr. Tom McCoy and Jenn Pishko with us from McCoy Medical, who are doing amazing things if you've been following the CrossFit health landscape in changing our views on medicine and changing medicine's views on CrossFit. So super pumped to have you guys on and dig into a few things today. So welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, very, very excited to be with you guys and appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us a little bit.
Always. We love to talk to insightful minds and people doing big things. And then we have Tony as well.
I was going to hijack your intro, but out of respect for those two, I didn't do it this time. But now you see, I'll remember this next time. This is what I get for being the nice guy. No, I'm very happy to have you guys on here. I'm looking forward to this episode. This will be a fun one, I think, for everybody. I mean, you guys have gotten a lot of, rightfully so. Maybe I'm biased because I've been paying a lot more attention to you recently. And admittedly, I think I told you this when I talked to you guys a couple weeks ago. A lot of people were like, you got to talk to Tom. And no offense, Jenn, they didn't realize that like you were the other half of the equation that I probably should talk to even more. But and I was like, yeah, I get it. And then I came to know of you at the summit, and I was like, I got to talk to Tom. And so I was very excited about that. And then I guess my point in that is that I've watched everybody else be like, I need to talk to Tom since then. And I think that's been very cool. So I'm glad to have you on here and share a little bit and dig into a little bit about who both of you guys are and really kind of what motivate. I was very moved by the conversation that your presentation rather at the summit, and then, getting to know you guys and getting to know kind of where your passion and background comes from. And I think it drives a lot with the community, of course, and that's why everybody's reaching out to you. So if we can shed some more light on the great things that you guys are doing, that's a win for us.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great intro, Tony. Thank you. I think coming out of the summit for both of us, we've been integrating this vision of the future of healthcare that we both have, into our affiliate experience now for some time. And, my background goes back to CrossFit health many years, right? And what was so neat, I think, about the summit is that many of us have been waiting to have an event like that for a long time, right? And this energy and this desire to be able to do something different in the form and manner in which we deliver health and performance optimization to individuals, I think is something that we're all very passionate about. And there's people doing it all across the country, but we've been, all of us kind of starving for the opportunity to come together and rekindle that passion collectively, which is something that, the CrossFit Health Summits used to be a really important outlet for us all to do. And it was just so great to have, Karin, who was a big part of that, with Coach Glassman back in the day and making those happen, to have her there and leading the charge once again for all of us and feeling that same energy. It was really, really exciting for me personally. And I think the response is a reflection of how big of a desire and need there is in the community for that again.
Yeah, definitely. And then not only in the healthcare space too, but from an affiliate owner standpoint, just to have a beacon of hope that there's another layer to what we can do in our own communities, right? And it's, connecting with folks in the healthcare space that want to also take that approach in leveling up community and, connecting in a different way that, 10, 15 years ago in an affiliate was really not part of the conversation, right? It was OG style. And so, there's that. Yeah, there's that evolution, which is really cool.
The original nutrition prescription, I think, was actually a staph infection for most of us back in the day.
It's a great way to lose pounds before a show, Tony.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I just get sick enough, I'll just drop the weight. That's all I'm going to have to do. Yeah. So, as somebody who will be celebrating my 18th year as a CrossFitter, I'm a dinosaur, and throughout that time, May 11th, for everybody listening, yes, I do know the date because that was the first time I nearly died doing Filthy 50 and said I'd never do it again. And look at me now. It's the only thing I think I've ever done in my life for 18 continuous years every single day.
Fantastic.
But that aside, I think that there's throughout that journey, throughout that time, there's some cool things that have happened that will be like milestone moments. Like obviously the original games was cool and things like, I mean, the games is still cool, but like that first one was like, wow, look at that's fun little like fitness barbecue, which is really all it was. And then like, then the seminars became big and like, there's been some cool milestones. And I say that because for sure that summit in Austin was and will be one of the coolest things that I've been a part of in 18 years. And it's up there with like a handful of 5 things. And a lot of that is due in large part to people like yourself being there and contributing to that. And obviously the work that Karen put into it and the force of nature that she is and putting that whole thing together. But the thing that was very cool about it, because all the other experiences, like you look at the first games or you look at some of the other things, what made those things what they were the vibes in those rooms, the energy in those rooms, maybe it's grassroots, maybe it's infectious. You can use whatever buzzword you want, but there was something there. You knew that there was something there. And like CrossFit Health has been a big initiative for a long time, but I think for most of us, myself included, it was kind of like it was an ancillary, sort of like an island thing where we're happy it's there. We love that this is happening. Not sure what my role is in this, but if I can help, let me know. But, going to Austin and admittedly, being a part of this, such a big one, it was easy after that to be like, oh no, this is the initiative. It's not one of, and we recorded a couple of podcasts about it going into it and coming out of it. And I think I said this to you guys too, like after that summit, I think that it's kind of a clear line of demarcation or a new epoch in CrossFit where there's 2 things to belong to now. Whereas like for a long time, you either belong to your affiliate and its why and its pursuit and its passion and its cause. And hopefully that was the case. But if your affiliate owner wasn't really good at those things, like you could at least still believe in CrossFit's why, right? Like, and Greg gave everybody something to believe in, right? Who are we fighting today? Well, woke up, I'm fighting sugar today, right? Or whatever that was. And we could rally around it. And so without that, there was the games, right? So we're just like, I guess that's the thing I belong to every open season. And like, you didn't have to necessarily love it, but we knew it created problems. But now I think that, and with all with the momentum that's following you guys, and everybody in health for that matter, I think that there's 2 places for a CrossFitter now to put their attention. They can choose to put it into the games, or they can choose to put it into health. They can choose to put it into both. But in the past, there just wasn't this thing. And I think that changed in Austin, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, Tony, one of the things that is most exciting for us is that we recognize that this is a tool that is supported by the best evidence we have at the moment to combat the biggest health challenges that we have as a society. And, I see our role in many ways as connecting those dots for a lot of affiliate owners and coaches who are doing that work every day. Because it was one of the things that we wanted to highlight is that you are already doing some of the most important healthcare work that happens anywhere, right? And when you think about the impact that CrossFit has and the sheer number of individuals that it touches, it may be one of, if not the most powerful preventative healthcare paradigms in existence. And what gets me personally so excited is, arming those coaches and affiliate owners and healthcare professionals who want to have a deeper understanding of why this is so important, and be able to add some additional scope to what they offer in their affiliate to connect those dots for their members and provide a more comprehensive support structure from a healthcare standpoint. I think is very achievable and doable, and will make CrossFit's impact on, metabolic dysfunction, the mental health crisis, and the opioid epidemic even more powerful. Because a lot of it is just making sure that everybody understands how we can leverage this tool that is CrossFit to be even more impactful. And I think that that's a lot of the excitement that came out of the talks that we heard at the summit, is that people walked away with that, with a deeper understanding of why what they do every day is so vitally important. And we all know that it changes everybody's lives, but you are literally saving lives every day. So as we build out that support structure and infrastructure and curriculum and training protocols, we can really set ourselves apart from anybody else in this space to be the preferred destination for healthcare.
Yeah, there's it for sure is a big piece of that too, which was, in that room, I think, and maybe it was the case in the other ones as well, in the other summits and the other panels, but, in that, it was cool to see so many people on the stage talking about things that we already knew to be true, right? And so there was certainly a reassurance or a reaffirmation that happened there, but every day, all day, in every single affiliate, even the ones that are absolutely ran terribly, like, people's lives are being forever changed. And I think we've always, as CrossFitters, we know, right? We buy in it because we drank the Kool-Aid, right? We're in the cult. Like, I get it. And maybe it's a little bit of the early elitism that was a part of it, but I think there's a certain sort of nihilistic approach that comes out of the backside of it too, where we're like, we get it, but like, if you found us, you belong here type of thing was like the ethos that was present and unsaid, I suppose, for years, where it was kind of like we're the counterculture, but now we're not counterculture. Like, we're mainstream. Like, CrossFit is, by all intents and purposes, the largest singly searched term in terms of fitness by a sizable margin on all of the internet, right? So it's like, we're not counterculture anymore. So we have all this data, but for all of us, it was anecdotal. And it was very cool to see people outside of like yourself, these scientists, people come in and be like, so listen, here's the things that are going wrong in the whole world, right? And they kind of boil down into like 3 pots, and it's, metabolic, mental, and, addictive disorders, et cetera. But we know that there's, no matter what those are, there appears to be clearly, based on the research, peer-reviewed, double-blind studies, et cetera, that there is 3 antidotes to them. And that looks like nutrition, intensity, and connection, right? Like, if to the degree to which you can do those 3 things, these things seem to get better. And then we started looking, where do these things happen? And all 3 of them happen in one place, in only one place. And there's no place else that I'm aware of in the entire world, truly, in the entire industry, fitness or otherwise, where those 3 things are happening. There's lots of places where intensity is happening. There's lots of places where I assume connection is happening. And there's probably lots of places where people are talking about nutrition, but it's only in a CrossFit gym, truly, where those 3 things are happening. And I think that it was very cool to see that and hear that. And I think for everybody sitting in that room, they were just like, as affiliate owners, they tend to play small, right? They tend to minimize themselves. I'm just a gym owner, or I'm just this guy. And I think that room was like, they kind of sat up. They were like, wait a minute, I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
Right. And think about the narrative that they get to talk about now or lean into, right? As that becomes more of the conversation, where it's not trying to figure out how to explain what CrossFit is in a way that makes sense to people that don't understand it, right? Which is, as an affiliate owner, something that's really challenging to do, right? talk about in CrossFit in 5 words or less. Like that's always been a challenge, right? And we're fighting the paradigm of, well, it's not going to injure you, right? But here's what it actually does, right? That's a very big thing that somebody that can run an affiliate or coaches or be able to have a conversation with somebody that doesn't need to understand what a snatch is, but understands what their health is, right? And so that's powerful for folks to be able to lean into.
Yeah, and you know, one of the challenges, the biggest challenges with all of this, right, is we know what people need, but when you try and establish a framework to achieve those things consistently, right, and put it into a structure that individuals can follow, that can be really hard, right? Well, how do I optimize my VO2 consistently, and where do I fit in high intensity interval training? At the same time, how do I build enough skeletal muscle mass so that I'm, you know, raising my basal metabolic rate and, you know, optimizing health span and lifespan? How do I make sure that I'm getting community connection on a regular basis and optimizing, you know, my neurotransmitters and my hormones because of what happens naturally with that? It's like you can try and put something together to do that, but we have literally a package that you can hand to somebody and say, you know what, just show up at 8:30 and we can check all 3 of those boxes.
Monday.
Right.
And really, like, and when you go to the traditional healthcare system, right, and you have lip service paid to those things, but it means nothing if you aren't able to execute on it, right? And one of the things that's so neat for me is like, I have this understanding, right, as a physician, and that gets me so excited about going into the affiliate every day and when I get to coach, because I understand the impact that it's having. And for me, I just think there's a lot of inherent value in sharing that science and knowledge base with the people who are already doing the work so that they can continue to rekindle that fire and be as excited about the work that they're doing as well. And I think, you know, part of it for all of us, I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to be a doctor in the first place is that I knew that it was going to be a profession that allotted me lifelong learning and that I was never going to be done. There was always more to learn and do and get better at. And this provides an avenue for affiliate owners and coaches to be able to do that too, right? And that's one of the things that, you know, we're most excited about now is that we can work with affiliates who really want to expand, right, this practice, you know, in their own affiliate, in their own community to level up what they're doing to bring everybody along, right? And I think that that's really exciting to get that fire going again for people.
And I think that, you know, a lot of affiliate owners have had they know that they're the lifeguard and they're in the lifeboat and they know that it's safe because it quite literally saved and changed their lives, which is why they headed down the path. But I don't think that they've had the words to, you know, like we just said, it's hard, you know, we try and defend CrossFit, you won't get hurt, like just come and do this thing. But they haven't had the words to, you know, hold this narrative about health until like people like you guys are putting out content since the summit, you know, and other people that they've heard in the space now, that like it's giving them words and framework to actually sit down and say to somebody like, better, you need this. Like I can see how badly that you need this and we're going to change your life. Not just, hey, we're going to do some burpees and thrusters. And have you seen my new rogue bikes? They're amazing. It really it almost gives affiliate owners permission now to feel like they are the smartest person in the room when they're talking to somebody who walks in and can
100%.
genuinely help them rather than just, I'm just a coach or I just own a gym or, hey, you know, come over here and just see the shiny barbells. Like they've got permission now to use that and have words, which is fantastic.
And not even the smartest, but the most impactful, right? I mean, and that's, you know, and I tell people this every day, and this is why we describe our practice as a lifestyle concepts practice, right? Because when you do the daily activities and you touch all of these cornerstones that we're talking about that happen within an affiliate, like that's 90+% of the battle, right? And the doctoring stuff, like ideally, right, this is putting me out of business, right? The amount that you need to rely on me as a physician for, you know, blood work and medications and supplements and all those other things like that, hopefully is minimized and non-existent over time.
Well, it becomes maintenance, doesn't it? It's like foam rolling, mobility, stretching. I get my blood work done just to keep an eye on things. It's not a,
No.
I've got to track, is this moving in the right direction? It becomes, your role is more of a maintenance part of the check-in. Like, did I stretch today? Have I, ticked off all these other things? Then you know that when you get to your checkup, like, things are fine.
Yes, and
no
that's
surprises.
the role, right? Is that it's essentially, the piece that we deal with when it's, from a health standpoint is there's a bucket for everybody of you don't know what you don't know. And so doing some blood work or testing at certain intervals is important to make sure everything is where it's going to be. But the way that you get it there and keep it that way is by doing the things that we do in the affiliate every day. And that's what's most important.
Yeah. I think CrossFit has always, it's been to some degree lucky throughout its time. Like, it's been fortunately positioned through a handful of different, we'll call them social trends, but like the original launch of .com was perfectly positioned to a time when the masses started being like, I think I could go to the internet to find out how to work out. We started to leave, like, in the early 2000s, we started to leave, like, maybe I don't need to figure out how to do this from a Men's Health magazine and follow the 90-day abs program. So, and then maybe it was like, in my case, Gerard Butler's Abs in 300 being like, how the hell? And that found me on this random cryptic website, but it had a pit bull on the front page. And I was like, I'm in. I don't even know what they're doing here, but I'm going to do it. And then I did it. And I said, I'm never coming back again. And then the forum became my happy place. So we had that initial, sort of luck there. And then I think truly the monumental success that was the CrossFit affiliate was truly due in large part, and I don't have any data to back this up, but it perfectly coincides with the first financial collapse, that 2008, when everybody was isolated. Nobody had any place to be. Real estate was cheap. Opportunities were present, and people lost their jobs. So, like, there was all these people who were like, I've been doing this thing in my garage by myself. I just got fired, right? I just got laid off. Maybe I'm just going to do it with some friends. And you kind of had that build up. And so I mention those things because we're in another phase now where the teens, we'll call it the 20 teens, that was just rife with distractions for everybody, right? Like, there was so many things going on. You could make money doing anything, et cetera. But then obviously we come out of the pandemic and everything has gone to shit, right? But at the same time, this is all happening. This conversation is happening. And so one of the other things that's starting to happen is that this has become sort of mainstream. So it's not just in the CrossFit space like it has been for the last 20 years, talking about like, hey, turns out constantly very functional movement with friends might actually save your life, but that you had to walk into a gym to know that. But now you got people like, Peter Attia and you got Huberman are talking about these things that people are like, hey. And so the whole world is paying attention. But why I bring that up is that it's a perfect position again, because these people, and like, I love them to death. They're incredibly intelligent people. But if you've ever had to hear them try to explain what you should do to become an athlete of life, to quote Attia, like, it is so complicated that really the simplest thing that they should say is like, turns out you should just join a CrossFit gym. But they obviously can't say that. There's nothing really in it for them. But like, the thing that they're trying to say, but they can't actually say, is that like, hey, you should just join a gym. Like, I think Tia's famous thing is like, be an athlete of life. Think about like a decathlon. Choose 10 things to get better at and do them for each decade. I'm like, those sound like the 10 general physical skills. Like, let's just do those for the rest of your life. But so my point, I guess, is that even without any of the marketing or any of the hype and the success of CrossFit as a space, like, the more everybody else starts talking about these things and the more complicated they keep making it. Like, I think it's so funny to hear people try to explain fitness and be like, you could just define it as, increased work capacity across broad times modal domains. Nope. They try to give you this long thing. And so here we are again positioned. And I think affiliate owners don't know how good they had it in 2008, 2009, 2010. Cause like, dude, affiliates just blew up then. You could do anything you wanted. Like, and it just worked back then. And then it got really hard because everybody entered the space. I think it's going to get really easy again. Not in like a, like a minimalist sense, but like, people are going to start looking to be like, hey, it turns out I can do all three of these things that you're telling me I need to do at this one simple location. But otherwise I have to go to like this this high intensity interval training gym, and then I have to go over here to get my nutrition advice, and I have to go, I don't know where to get connection, join a kickball league, right? Like just join a CrossFit gym. Like life is easy. And these people essentially are marketing for CrossFit without even realizing they're doing it. Because it's just like, yeah, you could go do zone 2 cardio all day, 4 or 5 times a day. I mean, listen, I'm sitting on a bike right now for my meetings, but like, you don't have to make it more complicated. You just go to a gym 5 days a week.
Yeah. I mean, I think that people, we have this preconceived notion in our head that good has to be complex, right? Yeah. And the elegant solution that is CrossFit, right, is that it's simple, but it's not easy. And I think the understanding that it is a strategy and an approach that allows you really to hit the most important pillars, but you have to show up and you have to do it. But there's inherent benefit in that as well, right? Because building that resilience and grit by doing hard things and developing comfort in being uncomfortable is an invaluable life skill, so that when things do hit the fan, which they invariably do, you have the capacity to tolerate that in a way that you never would if you weren't challenging yourself on a regular basis. And, one of the things that I'm so excited about the summit is that I think that, a lot of HQ leadership had that realization, because, with any business, right, it's like, okay, well, how do we protect our niche? How do we continue to differentiate ourselves? What makes us unique? This is an area that CrossFit should be screaming from the rooftops about. Like, this is an elegantly designed healthcare strategy that anyone can access, that's infinitely scalable, that your grandma and your games athlete can do the same class and be there together in community and reap all of the same benefits. Like, that does not exist anyplace else. And we should be embracing that and pushing that message out to everyone who needs to hear it, right? And the people who need to hear it are all those individuals who think that CrossFit isn't for them. And so we hopefully as a community can continue to pull in those people who need us most, who are suffering with mental health challenges or significant metabolic dysfunction, who feel like they have to get fit. Like, all the time we talk to people, it's like, oh, well, I got to start training before I come into CrossFit. Like, it's like, no, that's not.
You've heard that before, Tony. You know what that sounds like.
That's not how this works. You show up. That's why we're here. That's why we have the best coaches in the world, because we can adjust this so that you get the needed stimulus, just like everybody else in the room, in a way that's safe and effective and yields real results very, very quickly. And it's such a gift.
And I think Nicole Carroll, when she came on the podcast, said it like, we have such powerful examples in CrossFit of where we're, helping people recover from addictions and, mental health and those things. And the other lookalikes or the wannabes in the space, they don't have the stories.
I think she called them cheese dick fitness brands.
She did. She did, in fact, say that we don't need more cheese stick fitness brands, which is still our greatest quote ever. But she said they don't have those stories to that depth that we do every single day. Like, if you look at what Dale King's doing, that's happening every single day, and other affiliates that are now following his method. And you've got people who have their own private journeys in the affiliate every day. That's what's keeping them alive, is going up and turning up to, they know that at least when they get to that 8:30 class, that someone there, whether it just be the coach or whether it be someone else, is going to be happy to see them and glad that they exist on that day, even just for that hour. And, you for sure can go and get that high intensity, but it's not that genuine care and compassion and the profound life-changing effects that, we've all experienced through CrossFit and we see every day, that just can't be replicated.
Yeah. And this is we talk about this all the time in the medical profession. I think it's exactly the same for CrossFit, right? It's the institutional knowledge. It's the collective knowledge of us as a community that the more that we understand the why and the impact behind what we do, the more impactful and effective we can be. And we do this with patients every day. And it's why we've structured our practice the way that we have. And we spend so much time with people is that, one of the most effective ways to get buy-in is to have the space and the time to explain why it's important. And instead of me just telling you to do something and you going, oh, this is hard, or this is stupid, or this isn't for me. If you can connect the dots between why someone isn't where they want to be emotionally or is struggling with how important it is to have social connection and do something collectively with a group that is hard, there is buy-in there that I tell people all the time that social connection, you need to think about this like a medication, right? It is literally doing the same thing that SSRIs and all these other prescriptions that we utilize do without the side effects and all the other ancillary benefits in a much better price point. So, I think the more that we can increase our institutional knowledge where we're leveling up our collective understanding about what we're doing, the more impactful we can be about bringing people in and keeping them committed to the process, right? Which is the key in habit formation.
Yeah. I think it's a coming of age story too, in a lot of CrossFit right now, where it's like, don't think really any of this would have been possible 10 years ago, not just because of like the ecosystem that we're a part of, but like, I think we had to go through those growing pains, those ugly years, those ugly sort of, messy middle, so to speak. Because what I mean by that is that if we would have tried to talk about this stuff, and we were talking about it, but no one was really listening, right? And so, like, to your kind of point, Tom, earlier about like being a business first, is that like every business falls a victim to this trap. Speaking of what's and whys, where it's like it's very easy to get distracted, caught up in and focused on what we do and lose sight of why we do it, right? And I think Greg was very powerful, as that was one thing he really cared about. And sometimes that looked like picking a fight with Big Sugar. Sometimes it looked like taking a lawsuit at the NSCA, whatever that looked like. But like, he didn't really care that much about what we were doing. He had people for that. But then we kind of lost that. And so the only people left were those people. And they're like, no, I care about what we do. And all of a sudden somebody was like, yeah, but why are we doing it? They're like, I don't know, ask Greg. We can't, he's gone, right? Like, there was this thing, and it was missing. But and I say it a lot on here, but the absence of whys, what will become wise, right? And so if you don't have a very profound or compelling why, or you can't remember it, you get caught up in what you're doing. And that's what CrossFit, I think, did for a long time. Like, we got caught up in like, how hard could you do the thing, right? Like, how fast were you at doing the thing? And like, okay, let's do it on the world stage at the games. And then nothing really came of that. Like, I love the games, but like, it didn't fill the gyms like everybody thought that what was going to, right? In fact, it might have done the exact opposite. But here, what we have, I think what happened in Austin that was different this time with the summit was that brand got on board, because like you were saying, it was time. We've matured enough as a business, as an ecosystem, as an industry, whatever we want to call us, to be like, hey, it's not really about what we do. It's never been. It's always been about why we do it. And that pulled us in the beginning when it was just a website, because like you just were there because of whatever reason led you to that website. And it got messy in the middle. But I think now, to your point, it's like it brings us back to the profound level of value that exists inside every CrossFit gym that we take advantage of, right? Through those 10 years, we kind of, when you're around something so great so often, you kind of forget how good it is, and you lose your ability to talk about it. And so by putting all those scientists and doctors on the stage and they start talking about it, people need to be reminded way more than they need to be told. And like, that's really what they were like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, it wasn't just about getting ready for the Open or following this competitor program or doing this. It's like, we need to save lives. And I guess my point in that is that from a business perspective, I think HQ is starting to get it now, but there's two problems that are omnipresent. Of course, HQ needs to grow as an entity in and of itself. And so they're like, how do we do that? And then affiliate owners are like, I need to grow. How do I do that? Well, the simple, not easy answer is start talking to the people who need this thing instead of talking to people who already do this thing. Right? Like, that's always been the answer. We just forgot that part in the middle because there was so many people who wanted to do the thing. We were just like, yeah, come on in. You can work out here if you want to. Like, we got open gym, actually 24-hour access, just come do your thing. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But now we're at a point where it's like, hey, if this is going to grow, the question is, can you talk to a stranger about it?
Mhm.
And like, that's the thing that's been charged. And like, you did a good job charging people and challenging them with that, being like, hey, it's time to get the right people in here. And what you guys are doing, you know, in your practice is, I think it's rocket fuel for them because, you know, simply put, I would normally only talk to Jenn. Like, you would be like somebody I would try to avoid time. I'm like, I don't talk doctor. Like, I don't speak that language. But you became different because you're like, oh, wait, you're bilingual. Like, you can speak both of our languages. But I still would probably be like, I'm still only talking to Jenn because she's safer. Like, she knows my language.
That's a
You
thing,
broke down
though.
that wall. Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think it's because we all weathered that same storm, right? Like, we kind of, you know, as CrossFitters, we're trauma bonded with each other, and we don't necessarily know how to, like, we don't trust doctors. And I guess that's really what I was trying to take this to, is that, like, what you guys are perpetuating and putting together is an opportunity that is massive for affiliate owners for so many reasons. But if we stop talking about CrossFit for a second, we just talk about the general population, there's a huge problem. Like, I don't know how many people listening to this, like, if you try to go online and look up, I don't know, a functional medicine doctor, or insert whatever buzzword you want in there, healthcare 3.0, whatever, you'll find nothing. And if you do, you'll find, you know, somebody who's probably a little bit more Zen than they are a little bit doctor. You might find, like, and you're like, I don't know who to trust and where to go to. And like, that's, I think, the collective, like, I never have ever trusted my doctors because they were just like, to your point, like, they're like, well, just take this pill. I'm like, nope, I don't want the prescription. What's the other option? They're like, well, so this is a complete sidebar, but I remember going to I don't go as much as I should because it's whatever, dentist either. But I remember going to the dentist. They're like, you didn't gain any weight. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, okay. And I was like, and I asked this a handful of years ago, I was like, how many people gain weight? She's plain blank, just everybody. I was like, what do you mean everybody? She's like, every patient gains weight. In fact, when they don't, we think there's some. So I was like, so you think that there must be something wrong, and that's why I'm losing weight? She's like, well, it's a red flag. And I'm like, what?
That's the state that we're in. Yeah.
And I was floored. Truly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's so much in what you were saying there, Tony. I mean, a couple of points I would highlight is that, you know, you alluded to me being bilingual in those spaces. And I think one of the things that we're passionate about is that we want to help all coaches and affiliate owners be bilingual with what they do every day, because they're doing the most important work. And now it's just about a deeper understanding of why it's so important, right? And that gap is not that big. Like, we can fill that need for individuals who want to do it. And at the same time, I you know, just as a PSA, like, if you don't trust your doctor, you feel like you aren't connecting with them, you know, you should keep shopping, because there's good doctors out there. And just because, you know, they have that credential, just like anybody else, doesn't mean that they're the right fit for you. And so I do want to encourage everybody to, you know, be an advocate for themselves and be empowered to find somebody that they can build a relationship with. And that's one of the other things that we're most exciting about, is trying to create a network, right, of physicians who do really appreciate the impact and the methodology of CrossFit, and how that can be incorporated as a, you know, really the foundation of your healthcare strategy. And hopefully that will be a realization that happens, you know, this millennium.
And I think, you know, some of the battle is with, you know, traditional doctoring, for want of a better term, is it's like, I've got a waiting room full of patients. I've got 15 minutes to see you, diagnose you, get you out the door, get the next one in. Like, there's really no time built in for that, you know, unless it's a more intentional practice to how are you really? You know, last time you came in, we talked about this, like, rather than, you know, like, I take my mother to, you know, appointments to the GP, and she has to have some tests done. She goes, oh, you know, we last talked about this you raised it in 2021 as a concern. I went, yeah. And you've glossed over it every appointment since, but now it's an issue. Like
Mm-hmm.
now you're like, oh, you have to go and have this referral before she can, get her license and da. It's like, well, hang on a minute. I flagged it as a concern like 2-3 years ago, but because it's that 15-minute life cycle, like get in, unless you intentionally yourself make a longer appointment, then there's still no space to create that. So how are you kind of thing, and to recheck on the things that, people will let slide. Like, did you get that last set of bloods done?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, I didn't get that. And I'm notorious for it. Why didn't you do that test? Well, why is that a problem for you? Rather than, okay, well, just make sure you get it done before the next time we check in. And go, yeah,
Right.
I'll get to that.
Yeah, and that's the inherent challenge that we face now, right? Is that the system is not designed to prioritize the things that are most important, right? Which is why we need to transition and minimize our reliance on the dysfunctional system and build one that actually prioritizes the things that are most impactful, right? Which is what we do every day when we train CrossFit, and then figure out a way to access the medical community to support the things that we need, which when we're doing things right is really pretty minimal. And that's how we're going to influence changing the system overall, is by doing it better. We've got to the point now, and I think the philosophy that we take, right, it's less talking, more doing. And we've just decided that we can't wait for a top-down solution, that we have to start doing this work, and you start spreading it organically, and it will be grassroots, and it will be from the bottom up. And eventually it's going to get to the tipping point to where the system will realize that it has to adjust and change for multiple different reasons, right? Either enough people won't be accessing it, they won't need it, so it won't generate any money or revenue. And it will start to realize that, this is an actual way that we can decrease costs, right? Which is what the payers really care about, right? And what insurance companies care about, because if you can decrease the costs, right, for reliance on medications and hospitalizations from an insurance standpoint, that's very valuable, right? But from the system standpoint and the way that it's structured, that's how money is generated right now. And so until we pull that away from them, right, and really pull the rug out from underneath them, it's not going to change. So our actions really have to be what dictates the change that we want to see in the world.
But I think the white space or the opportunity in the title of coach comes in a lot, in that, like to your point about, being an advocate for yourself and going and finding, a better doctor, whatever, like that's hard to do right now, but for all the reasons that you just listed. Like, it's not something you can just Google and go shopping for doctors, because next thing you know, you need to have a referral or this, or they got to send over your files. And the whole thing is a nightmare for all the reasons that we know to be true. And I don't fault anybody in their practice for it. Like to Lisa's point about, short-term appointments, like it is what it is. And that's fine, because that's the industry and that they have to operate in. But there's an opportunity in there, and really where I think people have always gotten what it means to be a coach wrong, in my opinion. And we talk a lot about this on here, and the difference between training and coaching. And most people think that to be a coach is to impart or to know answers, but to be a coach is quite the opposite. It's your ability to find answers, right? It's your ability to understand, and your ability to put people in the right direction. It doesn't say anything about you being the one that does it. And so when, to your point about learning how to be bilingual, I think a lot of affiliate owners and coaches are afraid that, like, they need to learn, like, they're going to have to go back to like bio and all these things. They're like, I don't even really want to go back to organic chemistry. Like I still have PTSD from that, right? Like they think that that's what they need to know, but it's like, no, like, because I think we're all taught that knowledge is ownership. So you have to own what you know, but that's not the case, right? A great coach should collect great practitioners, providers, therapists, etc. Yes. They don't need to be great practitioners, therapists, providers, etc. Like Kelly started, and I've talked about this quite a bit. It's like, my job is to put you with the right person, but it's my job to find the right people, because I don't want to have to trust in your ability to go through the Goog and look for the right doctor, right? And so I want to build that network. I don't need to be the doctor. In fact, that'd be a terrible scenario, because for one, the money's always in the middle. So you're much better positioned to be the middle guy than you are to be the guy. So like, get good at sending people in the right places. And I think that coaches are going to start to understand that in the years to come. It's like, hey, it's not really about how much I know. It's about my ability to help you know. And that has nothing to do with what I own in terms of knowledge, has everything to do with my ability to understand you, where your limitations are, and then finding the right person for the right answer. And this is a huge space. We see this a lot, because in the work that we do with Affiliate, it treads dreadfully close a lot of times to therapy, mental health and whatnot, because we really work with the person. And we get into some stuff that is well outside the scope. And we're like, okay, we're going to have to and so a statistic that we're proud of is like almost 90% of our clientele now has an active therapy relationship, which is awesome. And that part needs to be a bigger conversation with so many other things. Like, it's embarrassing to me that I don't go to the doctor that often, but finding one is hard. And so I'm glad to see that coaches are starting to step into that role. And I think that's the space where these coaches who are they're so busy trying to figure out what they're supposed to know that it's not, you never needed to know. It was about your ability to learn more than anything.
Yeah, that's such an important point, Tony. I think that, and I've struggled a lot. I think a lot of physicians struggle with this because the expectation is that we know everything. And I think as coaches, you can have the same misconception when it comes to training, right? That if somebody asks you a question, you don't know the answer, you better come up with something. And you need to do that to maintain your position of authority. And I always tell people a really good litmus test for your physician, right, is that if you ask them a question they don't know, right, they should be willing to go on that journey with you and figure out how to get the answer. And if you're in a relationship with a healthcare provider who scoffs at you when you ask a question or is curious about why they are asking you to do what it is you need to do, and makes you feel belittled or small, that's when you back out of the room relatively quickly, and need to look for somebody else. And I think the same way that what has led me to become a better physician, I think what you're alluding to that can lead you to be a better coach. Like, we need to get comfortable with not knowing the answer to everything, but building a community and resources where we can tap into those when we need to. Right. And I think that's part of creating this community of physicians and healthcare providers that we want to do. But the onus is on us to get comfortable, because we're never going to know everything. Right.
Yeah.
We can't. We need to be comfortable with acknowledging that, but building our community, with the right components so that we can provide everything that we need to get the best result for our members.
And I think part of that art too is being comfortable with having those open, honest, and hard conversations with our community, with our members. Like, hey, Betty, you've been coming here for 12 months now, but I can see that something's not working. Like, you're just looking at you, I can tell that you're gaining weight. I can tell that you're not happy. Let's sit down and talk about what the problem is and start the conversation. Whereas we just tend to not want to get into that space, which is what Tony talked about as coaches, is understanding that we need to, put our toes in the water, and the hard conversations start with us. And then we can funnel people to people that we know and trust, and we have relationships with, that we know will take care of them. And they're going to go, well, I go to my doctor, but he just doesn't listen. Cool. Let's try this. And here is someone that I work with that I trust that is different. And it's a different way of looking at it. And it's a team effort kind of thing, rather than just kind of, well, Betty pays a membership every fortnight. She's going to come in and sweat, but this is always going to be hard for her because, and it's almost, we've got an obligation of care to have those conversations. Like, Tony coaches me from across the other side of the world, and we've had those hard conversations at times. And you know what? That's conversations that sometimes no one's ever had with someone in their life.
Yeah. And I mean, I would have a hard time, or I would hedge my bet to, what type of coaches meetings are affiliate owners having with their coaches? And are we talking about how we teach Snatch better to a room full of 12 new people? Or are we cultivating a way to have hard conversations with our members when we see this stuff? And I mean, I can say that's something that we're actively working on, right? To level up the way that our coaches feel comfortable coaching people throughout class, and, understand how important it is to have different touch points with different conversations and in different ways. And so it's a different way to approach what, a CrossFit coach can be. And it's important to address what the execution of that would look like and how to do it in an effective and appropriate manner.
And I think a big part of that too is getting very comfortable at just asking an open-ended question, right? Because we're going to see and we're going to know when something is off with one of our members, right? You just intuitively know that. And all you have to do most of the times is just find a moment with that person to say, how are you? Right.
Yeah.
And in all likelihood, they are going to tell you. And in all likelihood, you may not be prepared to deal comprehensively with what they're going to tell you. And that is completely okay. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it goes back to what we just said. It's about having the options and the resources and the community network so that you can get that person what they need. But where that starts is with them having somebody to actually open up to, which is the whole point of the community aspect of this, right? And that's what differentiates us. And so we need to not be scared of that or timid because we're afraid of what we may hear, but comfortable knowing that we're going to be able, if we don't know the answer, we're going to have the resources in the community and the references to be able to get that person what they need. Right.
Yeah.
And it's, some of the pushback that I think I had in coaches when I had my affiliate was, it's none of my business. People don't want me poking around in their business. I went, but it's our business to care, because sometimes some of these people have no one else who's actually going to care about them. They're so busy caring for everybody else. They don't have anyone that's necessarily just focused on them.
Yep. And if they don't want it to be, if they don't want it to be your business, then they won't tell you. And that can be okay. But it's our responsibility, right? It is essentially like I see the coach and the affiliate, right, as a healthcare space, right? And that includes mental and emotional health. And they have to know that if or when they are ready or they need it, that we are there to listen. Right?
Sure.
And if you don't put that out there and leave that door open for them, they're not going to think that they can even open it. And if they want to close it back again for a period of time, that's fine. It may be in 2 or 3 months that it's very different.
The greatest part of CrossFit, I think, is that is the access to knowledge that everybody has, right? But I think in that same breath is where a lot of the struggle comes from, and a lot of this nuance would be resolved in the distinction between trainer and coach, right? To train is to teach and to coach is to communicate. And that part is missing, I think, in a lot of people, because coach just gets thrown around as like the verb of a trainer. And it's not, right? It's completely separate in terms of practical application, implementation, et cetera. And like the reason I referenced the knowledge part of CrossFit is the thing that drew me to CrossFit in my initial journey was the access to world-class coaches that up until CrossFit became a thing, to be a coach and to be respected as a coach was to hold my knowledge as proprietary information and to not share it. And then Greg made that whole thing open source. I'll never forget being in the forum in my thirst for knowledge that I could not find from anywhere. And these people were just sharing decades of experience. I was like, what? And then being able to go spend a week with Louie and be able to go spend a week with Romanoff and go down and see Jeff and Mike and like all these people. And they were just like, yeah, come on out. You could sleep on the couch, right? Like, don't recommend sleeping on Louie's couch, but that's a great sidebar. But, there was this access to this information that we didn't have. But the thing that was different back then was that like no one was proud of what they knew. And then CrossFit built this wealth of information. And then people started to become weirdly sort of like proud of what they knew. And then they got confused. And I'll never forget a conversation I had with Kelly Starrett decades ago at this point. And he had said, we were talking about something, we were basically talking about, to kind of your point, Tom, what drew you to being a doctor, was that like, the beauty of this thing is in our ability to continually learn. We're a student of life in this thing. And I think that should be the pursuit of any human in any industry that they choose to go into. But coaching, much like, being a doctor, is you can never master it. And Kelly point blank said to me, the day you feel like you know everything, quit. Because you don't belong here anymore. And and I totally got it. And I think for every seminar I taught from that day forward for, 10 plus years, that was my closing remark to everybody in the room. And they were floored. Right? I was just like, hey, the day you feel like you're done, do me a favor and get the fuck out. They're just like, because that's when it gets dangerous, to your point, right? Same thing as a doctor, same thing as a coach. When you think you have the answer, you're the problem.
You're the problem. No, it's so funny. I mean, we talk about that a lot in the medical training space, right? And then there is a legitimate path that everybody follows, right? When you go into training, your first year of residency, like you're scared shitless because you don't know anything. And then your second year, you think you got it all figured out. And if you're not scared shitless again by the time you're about to leave residency, you got to be real worried about that doctor. Like you should have a very healthy dose of concern about you needing to continuously learn and grow, and develop new skill sets and knowledge base and resources for your patients, right? We all need that. And I think the bigger point too is that we're not just, as a coach, right? You're not just coaching fitness, right? We are caring for humans, and humans are complicated and complex. And it is just as important that we're maintaining human connection and supporting mental health so that someone can continue to come and feel supported and do their fitness as any other aspect. And we ignore one of those components to our peril, right? Because if we aren't addressing all of them, at some point, we're all going to struggle with pieces of this. And the point of creating a health home is that this is a place where all of it can be addressed together.
For sure.
And I think
there's a lot more to unpack in this, and I think this conversation will be very easy to do. I want to jump into like how you guys do what you do in the practice, and then how the affiliates can do it. But I think a good point of this conversation right now is, for anybody that's listening to it, is you're already doing the right thing. Stop believing or stop thinking that you have the answers, though. Keep being obsessed with learning. But the key takeaway here is the value in CrossFit as coaches and their ability to communicate with people, because that's really where this is where, Health 3.0 really starts to change, because we already know what happens in an affiliate is the answer to so many problems, quite literally all of them, right? Let's just call it what it is. And so the question isn't about how to do that part. The question is, how do we get people into that part of it? And so much of that is just in the communication part of it. So all the people who are proud to call themselves coaches, but struggle to get people into the gym, I'm going to call you out in your ability to communicate about the thing that you seem to care about. You might still be just a trainer, which is fine, but it's time to move into the communication conversation, which means to care less about what you think you know and spend more time getting to know those people, because that's how we're going to get them in there. But I think it's really it's the value as we jump into this health space, which is like, how do we bridge that gap between what happens in the gym and what happens in the health office? And that happens through a coaching relationship and through communication. And, and I really want to jump into how you guys actually do that. But again, like we talked about before, this 21-15-9 brain, I think most of them will probably be like, can we do this in the second episode?
They've already checked out, Tony.
Yeah. There's a couple of them that they'll have already rewound this and started over a few times.
In that sense, and if we wrap up time, but I think, for a coach to understand that they can be an advocate for members of their community in a number of different spaces, and feel very proud to not only coach them through ways to get through their workout faster or better and more efficiently, but like be that person's advocate in life and in health, and like share the part of the fact that you care, right, outside of those 60 minutes, and try to communicate that, right, and help them seek out answers to questions that they might not have support for in different ways, right? Like we all hear, my doctor doesn't know anything about nutrition, and all I want to do is, put on more muscle and this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, help them advocate for themselves by seeking out resources that will help them get to where they want to be, right? And that's a very easy way to get started without having a huge infrastructure built, with a clinic next to your affiliate, right? So
perfect. Awesome. I think that this is just literally scratch the surface of all the stuff we want to dig in with you guys.
The problem is that I'm very excited right now, so I don't want to end this episode. I want to keep going.
Remember, we just became best friends, Tony.
This is one of my favorite episodes we've ever recorded, because I'm a little bit impassioned by it, but I'm very present and appreciate everybody's time. So I will digress. I will sit on my hands and drag everybody back on here again.
And we will definitely have you guys back on, relatively soon to dig into some more of this stuff, because I think it's making this conversation accessible, and people go to a seminar, they hear stuff, they're like, yeah, that's amazing. Then they go home and 3 days later, they're just back doing what they do.
Yeah.
And that cool stuff that they heard is floating around in their brain. But I think continuing to have the conversations, continuing to have the content out there, keeps bringing it to the forefront of mind and breaks it down even into smaller and smaller steps. Like you just said, Jen, about like just be an advocate for your members and let them know that you can advocate for them, outside that 60 minutes is, a brilliant small step that somebody can go, oh, so I don't need a big brain and I don't need all this stuff to do this. I can just be a good human and take care of my people to start and then get that ball rolling. So thank you guys for your time. We have loved having you on, and we will definitely see you again soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you both. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please remember to like and subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you know an affiliate owner, a coach, or entrepreneur that would benefit from hearing our conversations, please share this with them. We love the feedback and support we have from you guys, our audience. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find all the useful links in the show notes. We would love to connect with you. Keep doing the great work.